Just
run the
edit. Just
gambit.
don't even tell us when you're recording.
No, I'm not going to.
We can see the button though. That's the issue.
That's terrible. You're literally screen sharing.
The issue is we can see that. So
that's not
in many ways we do know when you've started.
But that's not fair.
When are we getting Harriet to just come in via the back of your?
I've told
your
her.
Yeah, can we spin you around 10 times with your eyes closed?
I've told her specifically not to come downstairs because whenever I'm recording videos, she hears me and then I leave the room and she's in my face saying, "Hey, Pokemon trainers," and I get that then for a week.
She could be our Abby Clancy to our podcast.
Yeah, she's already.
Let's establish that first.
She's already asked to be a guest, and I haven't.
Sorry, when you said when you do all these videos, how many have you done now? 2 or 3?
I don't know, a lot. They keep playing.
Is it a lot?
He's done the 2 long ones, hasn't he?
They keep playing.
They have been long.
I keep.
They do keep playing them.
They do keep asking you specifically, which is annoying me.
I'm doing another couple now.
Is it annoying to anyone else that they specifically tag certain people for certain things? Because I'm a bit like, literally anyone could do this, and some of us actually know what we're talking about.
Hello.
Weird. Hello.
I realised Ben just kind of doing this. And I don't know if you saw Aoife just do this all the fucking time.
I didn't know what this was. I asked a couple of people in, I don't know if it was locals. I said, "Oh, do you know this thing?" And they're like, "I have no idea."
It's
and
I still don't know what it is.
I said it was called.
I'm not down with the kids, but yeah, it's the whole point of like you're supposed to shush your like whoever you're speaking to, and you're just supposed to like just mark out your like jawline and just say like I'm better than you kind of thing.
Oh no, that's shocking.
I had no idea, but it's lessons from across the pond, I suppose. But
wow.
Oh yeah, that's it. Right. Are we ready to make a start? Is this it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should probably sit up, I guess. Yeah, good point. Yeah, pay attention.
Glasses on.
Enthusiasm is off the charts, boys. I can't believe this. All right. I don't even know where to start now. Right. Welcome, everyone, to Spill the TCG podcast. This is a collection of 3 random British guys coming together finally to actually do something we've always wanted to do. So I'm here, Alex Dow, alongside some fellow co-casters of mine on the official Pokemon streams. Benjamin Rabayotti and our mentor, Joe Bernard, here has joined us as well. He doesn't need to be here, but he has decided to come along. So welcome, boys, to our first podcast.
We're finally doing it. I feel like I've been involved in conversations for probably like over 5 years now with various people. Alex, you a few times.
Yes.
But yeah, we've actually hit record on one of these. So cool. Happy to be here.
It's funny because it took us like 5 months or 6 months of just conversations, and then I slapped the overlay within a day of conversation.
You slapped the overlay.
Right. No, it was my idea
to do an overlay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We're going off piece, boys. All right.
So we're already seeing the value of Rab, because without him we wouldn't have this. So
this is great.
Right. Okay. Thanks, guys. Look, this is great. But let's start with you, Benjamin. Just give yourself a bit of an intro, because not everyone knows who we are. You know, we've been involved, but we better know you as well.
Not many people know who I am, but I've been a player for about 8 years now. Started casting last year, or maybe it was in a year and a bit, and then been a podcaster now for a week. So it's been
about 12 minutes.
Yeah, for literally 4 minutes. But I'm gonna count today because I did the overlay. But yeah,
good.
Yeah, but
Put that on the minutes.
Always wanted to engage in the community in different ways. And I think, just like Joe said, you know, it's just an amalgamation of conversations over the past 6 months to kind of start this. I think it started with me and Dow, and then we roped Joe into it, as we always do. Joe always ends up doing the admin, even though he says strictly, "I'm not doing anything."
That is true.
because he's too busy.
My one condition for being part of this was to do as little admin as possible, and that's already not working out. But I'm hoping it's gonna get better as we go.
Yeah,
for me, it's more of a case of like, this is a cool platform for me in that I can have a more personal voice, whereas a lot of the time I'm trying to be very like down the line, unbiased. These are the facts. These are the stats of OmniPoke. That's basically the direction I've wanted that channel to be. And this can be much more of a like, we're three mates who've known each other over 10 years now, basically. So it can be much more about personal stories and just sort of players behind the game, that sort of thing, I guess, what we're kind of like in and around the game, but also just in more general terms.
I mean, yeah, Joe, you don't really need any introductions, as it were.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Omni Joe.
I guess I should do that though, for anyone who doesn't know. So I've been casting a little bit longer than these guys. I started in 2016 for the national championships, carried on for internationals, and now part of the regional team as well, which is really cool for Europe. And yeah, I've been doing a YouTube channel in almost exactly a month's time. It'll be 10 years that I've done OmniPoke YouTube, which is all about competitive TCG. I've been playing for a few years before that. So yeah, fully integrated in the game for a long time now.
Yeah, cheers. And despite Ben kind of trying to take us off rails there, yeah, I'm Alex Dow as well. I've been playing, I think it's actually heading on to 10 years as well. And then obviously transitioned into casting, something I've always touched on for quite some time. I've spoken to Joe about it a long time ago. We've got some more stories about how that's kind of come about in future episodes. But yeah, as kind of Joe said, there's a lot of insight between all three of us. We've kind of experienced a number of different aspects of the game, from behind the scenes, from being competitive players who've gone to Worlds, and all of this sort of thing. So we're just trying to bring all of that insight and sort of fun to everyone on the podcast who wants to listen to this as well. This has come off the back of, yes, us kind of getting even closer because we have become casters. We have had a group chat. We've had some mishaps, which have then caused a particular transition into voice notes. And then that's kind of come into this idea of actually a podcast coming together. So stick with us, and then you might hear some of those stories going forward as
we've
well.
We've got the receipts, we've got the voice notes, we can play them at any point. So
yeah, maybe we'll stick it on like an AI voice and have someone else talk it over. Right, boys, let's discuss obviously one of the biggest events that have happened in our lives, particularly for myself and Benjamin. Joe, it was a little bit different for you for the first time. EUIC, it was not too long ago now. I guess it's actually quite interesting to start with you, Joe, because EUIC, for the first time, you were able to become a player at the tournament.
Yeah, and it's the first IC in general that I've played since 2018, I think it was. So that's a long time to have not played an IC. And I think back when it was OCIC, the one that I played in, it was probably only about 300-400 people. And now we're talking about EUIC, which is 2,000 plus players, which is a completely different experience. The biggest tournament that I've played in, definitely. So yeah, it was very, very different, very interesting in terms of like the prep before the tournament, obviously because of like content as well. I normally am like quite far reaching in terms of like deck decision and all this other stuff. I'm like a jack of all trades rather than like a master of one deck, which is typically what we see the best players do: get really, really good with one deck and then just main it for as many months as they can until it gets bad enough for them to jump ship and start again. So I basically just locked in a very like basic, boring Arctina, because I thought it was one of the most working decks in the format. That had a good time into Charizard as well, which was like one of my key criteria, expecting it to be popular. But yeah, my run was like, okay, I made day 2 and then basically flopped day 2. I lost to like 2 Charizards. One of them, actually, did I lose to? Yeah, I think I lost to 2 Charizards. One was Zard Bib, which is a really hard matchup for Arctina because they can force that one prize more. And then I lost to a Zard Pidgeot, which is, I think, a favorable matchup, but it was a really, really weird set. It got super bonkers. So it was just like classic Pokemon where the typical plan that you have of the matchup is just out the window by like turn 2. So, and that was in all 3 of the games that we had. And then I lost to like a Chien-Pao and all this other stuff. Most of my wins came from farming control throughout the weekend. Actually, I beat Snorlaxes. I beat 3 Pidgeot controls. So I actually had pretty decent RNG. Like I dodged Lugia all weekend. So that's kind of like the biggest risk I took, I suppose, with Arctina. And I think I probably would continue playing it if I was playing in any cups for the rest of the season. I think it's a pretty well-placed deck, especially with Lugia doing badly over the tournaments that we've had so far. I feel like there's a clear runway for Arctina to be like a safe choice now. So I don't regret the choices I made for the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if anyone wants to kind of go over what Joe's done in that tournament, he's obviously, you can watch that over on OmniPoke as well.
Yeah.
But what's the most interesting thing from my aspect is knowing you went into day one pretty much in a terrible state. And then I'm pretty sure you had more sleep ready for you as well.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. I mean, yeah, so I was ill in the build up to EUIC. Like the week before, both me and my housemate Tim were ill. And then we went to EUIC. And the night before, I went to watch Chelsea Man United. And these guys were meant to come with me. And I had sorted out tickets for not only these 2 guys, but also for Chip and Ethan, who were coming over from the States, also casting. And obviously because they were flying in on like Wednesday, they would be able to have done it on the Thursday. There was some worry about like scheduling issues because there's always tech rehearsals the day before or whatever. But from my experience with tech rehearsals, you're typically out by like 6-7 p.m. and the game was at 8:15 p.m. So I thought they'd be fine, just about to get there in time. But then you guys had to do a like little sketch or skit or be an extra or something.
I mean, I done my best to try and get out of that. Yeah, I honestly was so close to just.
I think for the edited, I don't know if they did a longer clip, but for the edited one that went on YouTube, I don't even know if I saw you there, apart from just like literally like walking into the center. I don't think I saw either of you.
I think I had. So I had one bit where I did the walk into the center. You might have saw me hand modeling because a few of us were grabbing bags out.
I saw a hand of yours and a sleeve. Yeah.
And I think there was like one pose. So I think I had Bulbasaur. So there was a few of us that were like wearing green or earthy colors. Benjamin, you could have gone.
No, I couldn't. I was writing random trainer information. So we had information on all players. But yeah, my preparation was wildly different, only because I was working as the kind of SME. So I was getting all of the information ready for the next day, but you guys were all having fun, and I was listening to your night menu music for about 6 hours and just staring at a small laptop, just entering data.
God.
But I love it.
All right,
so it was great.
Well, firstly, I guess, Joe, you must be proud Benjamin only had 2 errors across the weekend. So we've touched upon.
Are we going with only 2? Is that what we're going with?
What was the other?
Because
okay.
Well,
was there actually? No.
Loads. I mean, I think there's a lot of. I'm going to be a stern critic, right? Because I want things to be like there, snappy, this, that, and the other. I think 2 like major errors is in like showing the wrong card and this, that, and the other, which is just like very silly. But I feel like there were a lot of like graphical mistakes, which weren't necessarily like all you, I suppose, but there were things like records being wrong, players' names being wrong, this, that, and the other, and also just like cards throughout the games. Sometimes it was like
for that.
It's one of those things. So Rab is definitely responsible for those things, right? Cards being shown like in the games. That's definitely his job. There's no doubt about that. And I don't know if it's my like philosophy on it, I suppose, where like if casters are talking about things, I don't think it's always necessary for it to be shown, because I feel like the reason why we're putting cards on the screen is for beginners who don't necessarily know the effects of cards, right? So I feel like it should often just be like, what's in the active position? What have they just searched out and put into play? These sorts of things. And I want it to be that. Whereas sometimes Rab would be going like off of the casters, which is completely fine. And like Rab might be doing that for other reasons, like prompting them of an attack name or this, that, and the other.
That was exactly it.
But that's, for me, like, that's not the role. You know, I feel like you should always be thinking first and foremost, what is the layman, the layman trying to watch Pokemon, what would they want?
My philosophy was whatever was being played, right? And say they were doing a deck check, right? We all know what Ultra Ball does. We all know what Nest Ball is. But in the first turn,
Well, that's the problem. We don't all know that stuff. I feel like the first use of a VIP pass in the old format was something that I would always be like putting on the screen straight away because that's like
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you can't just say everyone knows what Ultra Ball does because that's exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do with this role. Is that we're trying to give laymen the chance to start learning cards.
Yeah, maybe I'm going against my own argument.
So, like every round, you would still have to show a Nest Ball, an Ultra Ball. You know?
Oh, that's what I was doing.
I've not been completely going through it with a fine tooth comb, but some bits that I saw when was it? It was on the Saturday night, so it would have been top 4. On top 4, I was like actively saying there should be X card on the screen right now, not this card or whatever.
We need to take this offline, okay?
Yeah, I feel that this is exactly what we get in our voice notes here. It's constant arguments. I was looking around to see if I could find popcorn, but I don't have any.
I'm not just doing this just to raise beef, but like I don't know. I'm always going to be as honest and stern with you guys because I want you to be the best versions of us that we can be for like more opportunities at the very least.
This is still the TCG rule.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying it to like dunk on you. Although it is a bonus.
Another T reference is that. Is that another T reference, Joe?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to get them in. Come on.
Okay, that kind of segues. I mean, Benjamin, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you had a very different experience. We already touched on you being the SME. I mean, I think I've called you
only 2 mistakes as well, so that's brilliant.
Only 2 mistakes, which I'm proud of you, considering how you got your job in the first place. I was always a bit worried.
Yeah, I've already accomplished everything I want to accomplish in the game. So
okay,
what are those, by the way?
I just wanted to see both your reactions. That's a complete lie. No, yeah, it was a very different experience. I mean, it was the first time we were doing it in EU, really, right? It's
actually wild that that's your first experience of it, and it's for an IC, whereas American casters have a SME at every regional event, and we do it slightly differently. So it's actually really bizarre that they had a European caster doing that because you were learning everything on the fly for the first time.
Pretty much. I mean, the pressure was on, but thankfully I have the intuition, the kind of
my God,
the charm.
The backstage charm. I mean,
jokes aside, it was a mixture of technical as well as kind of like knowing what's going on, I suppose. But there was lots of research involved, and especially with like players or the player history. I
think you said a lot of the stuff needed like a ton of updating or just like filling out, right?
Yeah, and I think this role is new, so that knowledge will get better over time. And especially the fact that we haven't had like we said that we haven't had that SME role in Europe yet. So all of those players from Europe that we see on the big stage all the time in regionals haven't had their kind of entries made yet, right? So
and you even said that you were doing like almost like a job description type thing for anyone trying it for the first time, which I think is actually like a very, very good idea.
So me and
because you were basically just thrust like, hey, this is rad. I mean, go do it.
Just to give them credit, but both the Bens working SME roles.
I was about to say it was
deserve all the plaudits just because of the level of information that we, when we're at the desk at the EU regionals, we're the ones doing the quick research or anything off the cuff that we know about players. It's more often that we quickly have a quick scan of certain pages. But
you can say Liverless. I don't mind shouting out Liverless.
Yeah, I mean, they're a fantastic resource, right? And we use all of this sort of information there whilst we're casting, and to have that synthesized into a readily, easily absorbable bit of information really made my job easier, and hopefully some of the other casters that were there as well. And so kudos to Ben finding himself in this element. I've never seen a BA so excited about a spreadsheet in life.
I could attach spreadsheets to Pokemon. It was brilliant. And before the week started, I spoke to Ben and what Dad was mentioning.
You wanted to say a surname, didn't you? And you couldn't say it.
I'm always afraid of getting it wrong. Always.
Well, you have
You
to
got
now.
one chance. Yeah, you haven't got.
You
can't
have
help
to
it.
say it now.
wait,
You can't
wait.
possibly not say it now.
Wait. Oh, hang on. Wait.
Are you getting Microsoft Sam up? What are you doing?
Waiting with bated breath.
How to pronounce surname on YouTube.
This is great for audio listeners because obviously Rav is just open mouth, saying nothing, just searching. So all they're getting right now, he's even messed up the, he's done, it's all gone wrong. It's all gone.
Right, I'm gonna say,
Okay.
I'm gonna say,
Go on.
I'm clipping this for him, by the way.
say, Ben. Oh, he's gonna hate this because I'm gonna get it wrong and I'll look really bad.
And you've known him for over a year now.
Yes.
Yeah. Go on.
He's a colleague.
Kiriakou?
You went with that, did you?
Okay, we'll take that.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
I'm gonna mention
Confirmation later.
I'm gonna ask him. But no, he definitely credit to him as well because we both approached it kind of double header. So we both settled an approach for both VG and TCG to create this kind of automated spreadsheet. So, I mean, we have plans for it in the future where we could attach. Well, I did for the second day 2, where we could attach deck profiles as well. So when casters would go on, and I trust the casters 100% in knowing their stuff. Obviously, they're casting for a reason, but it's to fill in time if they have a specific mental about how a deck should run, and they don't have any other points, or they always like to focus on the one specific element of the matchup. Then they have fresh reminders of how the matchup goes typically.
Was that stuff that you put in yourself?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You should have seen the
I would love to look at that.
No,
You would see me just shaking my head, basically push the laptop away from myself. And I just close the laptop and just start casting
you
away.
say that, but I got the research from yourself, so it's you
got the research from me.
It's all it. So the research I had was from Omnipoke and a mixture of Omnipoke and Trainer Hill for stats.
Crazy.
And Limitless as well. Limitless Online.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Most people, especially casters, should at least watch your video, Joe, ahead of a weekend of a regional, saying what should be coming up. It's good prep, but we should be taking in all the information we can. And Ben helps us with that.
I'm usually sweating watching the Omnipoke videos.
Hang on, should I be getting royalties off this then? Because
yeah,
I'm in official documents now. Am I?
Right.
But
That's insane.
The last thing on that as well, it's good because from a caster's point of view, if there's a specific card that's come up in the meta that it's just a random one of, or it's come back from previous sets and it's just all of a sudden a popularized, like the Bennett.
Yeah, like Bennett EX. Yeah.
It's just a reminder to casters what it does, HP damage,
why it's there,
all that kind of thing. So.
Attack names, ability names.
Yeah,
attack names are great. Yeah,
that helps.
So I'd be like slamming that information to them, but yeah.
How was casting them for the first? So you were with Mike, who you've casted with a few times before, right? And how did it feel? How different did it feel to just a regular regional cast?
Look, I think the first thing I could say about an international was obviously going into the rehearsals and going to see the stage and everything for the first time was very eye-opening. Got a bit of the chills just kind of seeing it in up close for the first time. But, it is another day at the office, right? But there's a lot more pressure. It's not just the regionals that I'd done in the lead up to UIC, where I had I'd like to think very good knowledge of the metagame and sort of the tournaments and how the tournaments were going to go and all the decks that were happening. But with rotation and all this new information that was being released, of course, we have so much information out there that we can utilize. But there just was that added pressure on the big stage. The good thing is we had familiarities. I had Ben as behind me with data. I had Mike to kind of help guide me through as well. We worked, essentially, we'd done the first live show together, right? Me and Mike.
Yeah.
So it was great to kind of come full circle alongside what essentially I'd call a good friend, and a good partner. day one, obviously, it's a long slog. As we kind of got to grips with it being like official now, we tend to have started round 3 onwards. So we've had a bit of a lie and we can kind of relax, get ready. International is straight from round 1, baby. It's completely different.
Those
different
days
game.
are very long,
It's long.
actually.
It's
Yeah,
long.
that's one of the biggest differences.
It's long.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk about it from your experiences, right, Joe? You've done every EUIC up until this point, and it's So carrying that flag afterwards, after you and Ross, is a little bit different. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a fantastic opportunity to do the Masters final with Mike as well. I got to see 2 fantastic players, fantastic decks. I'd like to call Tord a good friend. I mean, we speak a lot nowadays. So just kind of see the kind of things that he brings to the table. And just some of the matches were really, really interesting. I mean, we got so engrossed in the top 4 match, for example, that we did miss time. I'll say openly that I say a mistake, but it was so engrossed in like the gameplay and the back and forth and the intricacies of a Charizard mirror, which had 2 very different builds. And I think it set a great standard and baseline for the rest of the format.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the most important things to actually know this format as well. Like figuring out the mirror and how Tord's list specifically does it is actually huge. And I think already people are sort of taking note with that going into the next 2 tournaments. I think so both you and Mike missed time, but surely that's where Rab could step in and give you a little prompt.
No chance. Right. Just to give you a visualization of what I looked like. I was sat, crouched down, with a.
Well, that's your choice already. Go on. No one's made you sit like Gollum. I don't know why.
I watched them. I was fully like I was linked in. I was Mark Zuckerberg. I was linked into the screen.
He was engaged into my casting show.
So engaged that he didn't once look at the clock.
No, I can't. I don't have any capacity to speak to the casters.
No, what do you mean? You can type in the Discord. You were just saying how you could type in the Discord to do all this stuff.
I can't. I'm not. Well, I wasn't typing to the mid game. I wasn't doing that.
Oh, it was all pre-game stuff you were doing.
Yeah. I would only ever engage with them pre-game.
I feel like for like judge calls and stuff, you could also give them information.
Yeah,
like you could feed them information.
At the table, we've definitely done stuff.
It wouldn't be me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's one of those.
I'm just trying. Yeah, honestly, that's happened to me before as well. I remember like doing turns of time. I've done the worst one, which I think is not even just. So you basically just acknowledged that you'd missed time or whatever. But I've had situations where I've called someone else being turn 1 when they were actually turn 0, and then doing like the whole map of like they can't win sort of thing, and then being like, having a who won moment is actually just like the worst pit of the stomach feeling for casting.
That's exactly what happened, but we kind of knew that Tord won just because we worked out in the end, and obviously William at that point had his head in his hands, and then it came to the realization that even with the devolution, he needed 2 more turns, right? But that's the game. Unfortunately, we were just too interested in what was going on, how the game was going to play out.
It's so easy to do that as well. I feel like it's one of those things as the day goes on and you're having to focus and you're getting hyped up in it as well. Like you said, you start getting caught up in the emotion of the games.
As the quote unquote analyst, right? I'm trying to identify every line of play possible. It's seeing Tord suddenly evolve up with his last 2 rare candies and being like, please, Tord, you don't know.
Yeah.
And then William's just holding that last TM devolution, and it's just.
Maybe it was a genius bait. Tord knew the time perfectly. And
well, no comment. But
I don't think it was. I don't think it was. If it is, that's probably the best play of all time. Exactly.
I remember we had a chance to speak to him after the game. I think it was on. Well, it must have been obviously on the. I don't know whether it was on the Sunday or the Saturday.
Sunday's final only league, right?
But we said we asked him, "Did you have any idea about the 2 devolution?" And he just went,
No, didn't expect that.
The calmest guy. I mean,
who would expect 2D? I think 2 Devo is pretty wild.
It was wild.
Like going into EUIC, I think 1 Devo would be considered tech, right? And then we saw like Aleki plus Devo plus Eri, and then some list playing double. So wild.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's a good segue into like talking about some of our tournaments now, right? We've given a bit of our experiences. I'm sure there'll be other opportunities to go into a bit more about our casting and future episodes. Stay tuned for that. But of course, not just EUICs happened. We've had the largest regional of all time in this side of the world also occur as well. Also, other tournaments across the pond in the Asia Pacific regions. I mean, go on, Benjamin. I'll give you the floor. Going into EUIC to begin with, was this what you expected the meta to be?
Yeah, I think Charizard was probably going into it expected to be both the most popular and the strongest deck going into the tournament. I just think it has a bit of everything. It packs a punch. It has disruption elements. It's consistent. I mean, nothing stopping Pidgeot. Nothing stopping. Well, I mean, and then the inclusion of the 1/1 Bibarel specifically for Tord as well. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. I think the conversation going into it was Bibzard or Pidgeotzard the best, and why not a bit of both, I suppose.
I guess what we've seen so far from EUIC is this build of what Tord brought to the tournaments. I guess both tournaments, because I don't think he changed for Orlando in the end, and then what we saw win in Orlando as well. Is that the basis of Charizard going forward, Joe?
100% the basis now. I think the debate is whether you respect control enough to play the very heavy control respect package that Tord decided to do, which was a great call for EUIC, I think. It's whether or not you choose to stick with that or chop into it for like other mirror techs. We've already seen that like double Charmeleon's like very staple now in Orlando, because there was an expectation of a like Devo knee jerk. So having protection for that, possibly playing your own Devo for mirror is important. But I think, like Rab was saying, that the barrel covers a lot of the cracks of Charizard, where a lot of the time it would be a Rags and Riches story based on Pidgeot being in play. And for certain archetypes that take out Pidgeot easily, meant that late game of Zard was just quite pathetic in a lot of situations if it wasn't there. And the fact that everyone had tested against just a Pidgeot build or just a Bibarel build, I think also gave Tord a massive inherent advantage that he's playing the Bediff, but people don't know how to play against his list, which is so wild, I think, of an advantage to have.
I mean, that's what we saw in that previous tournament where he came with like the 31 one-offs, right? He basically played that kind of engine or similar engines to have multiple outs to
the Urshifu
different
deck.
cards, really.
Yeah.
And he just kind of took that, continued to go, well, let's combine both of the best worlds. And this is where we're at now. I mean, I didn't know if I expected Orlando to still have over 20% Charizard. I would have expected a bit more of a reaction.
The thing is, though,
it's
right?
only a week away, right?
It's only been a week. It's a lot of the Americans' first attempts at the deck. It won and was already expected to be the best deck. And also, like, one of the biggest checks to the deck, firstly was Snorlax, which people were teching for in Charizard now, so it flips the matchup. The other sort of major one I would say is like Lugia, which people were looking at before EUIC. And Lugia not only had a bad showing at EUIC, but also 2 future hands decks made top 8. So then Lugia's less safe. So like the main counters aren't safe into Charizard, which is kind of why we saw less than 10% of like every other deck. I still think that Arctina is like very, very underplayed in these last couple of weeks for how solid it is into Charizard. But Tordzard is admittedly harder than just a pure Pidgeot build, because a lot of the time my map would be taking out a Pidgeot to stop them having like an optimal turn, like 4 or 5 sometimes. Which would involve,
you're having to focus on both the support Pokemon.
I think the deck's too good not to play, especially if you're looking for points. I think it's a guaranteed points deck, kind of, if you can characterize that. I think it has answers to too much. The Cleffa inclusion was also genius, I think. It fixes up so many sort of prize trades as well. You don't really necessarily have to rely on the Rotom anymore. Of course, it makes sense that, you know, now that VRP's gone, you have to play some sort of out to a draw support. But I think the deck's just too good not to play.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I think it's pretty standard across what a lot of people have been saying now on the old social media and other podcasts. I think Charizard has kind of cemented itself as top of the table for the moment, at least, until we could figure out how to safely include a package that could beat it. I don't think that's really the case for the time being. But there's a few other like surprises, I think, that we saw throughout EUIC, and I think we saw in Orlando as well in the finals. That Ancient box, I don't think I really gave it too many legs going into EUIC, and then we saw it round one.
I flip-flopped on that deck so hard. Like, pre the set released, I thought it was going to be my deck. Like, it just was that category of deck where it's like a one-prize deck. They get stronger into the late game, has that inevitability, is a great beat stick. That I was like fully on board, and then I saw it got second at the Champions League in the senior division. And I was like, yeah, let's send it. This is a great, amazing deck. Started playtesting with it, felt the inconsistencies of the archetype, and was immediately just like put off that approach. But all those same strengths are still very much there with the deck. And it is strong, and it is relatively consistent at what it tries to do. It's a one prize archetype, so you can 1-0 people pretty nicely because of just how many turns in a game it takes people to beat you. And it was one of I tied a Moon to Dunce with in EUIC, and I just knew at the start of the game that it was always going to be a 1-0 or a tie, and when I ended up tying into it, just because of how long it would freaking take to announce like 6 attacks and basically 7 turns always. So, and that deck can constantly be like going in and out of the deck and shuffling and all that stuff. So there's a lot of inherent strengths around the deck. And just by the nature of having to play 29 ancient cards, you can't actually mess up the list very easily. You basically just play the core cards, and you can change like 1 or 2 slots. So everyone has like an out the box, very, very good list as well. Yeah. So it builds itself and makes it like shoehorns you into playing it correctly, I think.
I mean, I think we get that a lot from just the information we get from overseas, right? In the lead up to a lot of these tournaments, we've got a lot of rough baselines to work with. Obviously, they work and play in a different format when it's best of one, and they kind of build it slightly differently sometimes, but it gives us something to work from. And that's kind of what we then see with these ancient box decks, or even future box decks. Benjamin, I'll give you your moment to shine because I know you love your control. I mean, combined EYC, for example, that was like around 9 to 10% itself if you combine both Snorlax and Pidgeot. And we saw 2 of them in top 8, 1 make it in top 4. Maybe could have made it to the finals as well, based on unfortunate scenarios in the game. But go on, Ben. I know you want to talk about it. You're itching to talk about it.
I think there's different ways to play it now, which makes it dangerous in the format, because you can play this straight Snorlax still, or you can go down this Pidgeot build. But I think if you just look at Alessandra's deck, there's so many different tools he can play and different Pokemon that you can utilize for any specific type of play style. But now we go back to, it's a similar sort of scenario that we had with Regigigas. When we had Regigigas Stall, it was originally just the straight Regigigas 2 Hooper. That was it. That was the package. But now people have found different ways to get around it, either by knocking it out or having 1 2-row in the deck, or 1 penny or whatever. The control has to basically evolve in order to deal with that threat. So now, what? And I mean, Alessandra's lists are going to be the baseline, because he was, I would say,
Is it? There was no Snorlax in that list.
No. I would say just for control in general. I would say for control in general, I think that his list is the baseline. I would say, because it has those tools that you need in order to get around the counters that are in format. If that makes sense.
But he scoops Lugia. He openly said he scoops Lugia.
100%. I think Lugia's really bad. I was playtesting ahead of EUIC just because I wanted to figure out what people were playing, and I think when I was playtesting Control, Lugia was just a straight up loss. There's no way. There's just no way. Do
you think Snorlax Control is unplayable, or do you think it's like could still win a tournament?
It's significantly weaker than the Control.
Why?
Because
why is the narrative changed so much that like we were putting it probably in our top 5 before EUIC, and I understand that Charizard is now teching, but there's going to be I think Tord was the maximum amount of tech, and I think it will likely decrease from now going into the next few regionals. What makes Snorlax like a far worse deck. For me, it was a dodge and weave deck of like
Yes.
that you have two real like high profile bad matchups, then a number of very, very like 70%ers, which made it quite an appealing choice.
I would say it was the pure Snorlax, the 4 Snorlax build was still a dodge and weave deck before EUIC.
Yeah. But so exactly. And it essentially got better with Eri, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that the Pidgeot build is probably better because it has the different outlets to play against these different matchups. So say, like Ancient Box, for example, I don't think that matchup is winnable unless you have Noivern EX. Because everything can attack. Everything can attack in the Ancient Box. It's just this. It's like those little nuances, like Future Box as well. I don't think that's winnable unless you play the Noivern EX, or I don't think Giratina's winnable without the Bouffalon, or it's these different, and you need Mawile now. Mawile is, I'd say, more effective now than the Snorlax, because you can just pass around Snorlax. So I think the Pidgeot build is significantly better. I mean, Bert's still top 8'd with the 3-lax build, right? The 3-lax and the Pidgeot build.
It was still very much Pidgeot control list. He made sure to make that clear for us as well, because I think because of the way the data works, it came up.
Someone put it as other control. Alessandro took personal offense to that as well. On a podcast, he said he was actually angry that it was called other control.
So it was called other control because that's how the names are generated through the lists. So the lists
that's an Arcanine choice, right?
Yeah.
Not
And Bert was
based on the numbers.
Bert was upset as well because he was called Snorlax Control. But
when obviously he's Pidgeot.
Yeah. I messaged him afterwards because on the Limitless entry it came up with just Pidgeot, and I've just noticed now he's going to be upset again because I messaged him and I said
Limitless also says it. Yeah.
But I don't know why it's changed because it was Pidgeot originally, and then I messaged him and I said Justice, and he there's a little laugh or whatever. But then now it's changed to Snorlax Pidgeot, so he's going to be upset again. But
I mean, I guess there are 3 Snorlax in this list. So
Snorlax Pidgeot is fine, I think.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Yeah. But even if he plays the Mawile in the Charizard, right? So he
did play Mawile, yeah.
Yeah, I think just like we had with my original argument was the Regigigas build needed to change in order to beat Pikarom and the other matchups in the room. You had to have those little Buzzwole techs and stuff like that. We're seeing exactly the same now.
So you think you think that a regular pure 4-block no Pidgeot just Rotom won't top cut this format? Or you think certainly won't win this format?
It won't win. It's a deck that could get you into. It's like that old fable. It's a deck that could get you into day 2, but don't expect to do well in day 2.
I guess it's one, as you've already mentioned, Joe. It's a bob and weave kind of deck, right? So if you hit your own
it's matchups and it's techs, right? Because it felt like literally every high placing Charizard at EIC was like call the ambulance, but not for me with Snorlax. They were all playing Alekis, Churros up the wazoo, Palpads, Yelchir obviously from Tord. So that cap was out the bag pretty quickly as like, if I'm playing Charizard at EYC, I had to respect control. That becomes a debate now, right? Because with Snorlax doing so badly in tanking and Pidgeot being a very niche within a niche, only very experienced control heads can play that. But it could be like a 3% in the room now. So I would like if I'm playing Zard, I'm diverting text towards like Tina and Mirror and Chempao more than control now, right?
I'll say this for the quad Snorlax build. I'll say the same thing as that when people were asking me why I would never play the Pidgeot build. My answer is always the same. It's that I don't want to misplay. And it's the same argument. If you're bringing quad lax to a regional or to an event, it's because you just don't want to misplay and you just haven't tested the Pidgeot build enough.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Spiritomb was also very highly played in EUIC, and that also really hurts the Snorlax, like quad lax, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it was out teched rather than like being a bad deck in disguise sort of thing. I feel like it's going to be a lot less volatile for playing quad lax going into the next set of regionals.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen for the rest of this format, right? We're going to constantly see the meta basically come full circle. We're probably going to find a meta point where Snorlax will just kind of steamroll through and somehow maybe I say somehow, will do well at a tournament at some stage.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to a deck I'm just going to quickly touch on as well, because I think Lost Tina deserves a bit of a conversational point. It's a deck that's always had a lot of sort of people backing it, especially from overseas tournaments. You know, we've gone through many cycles of whether Giratina's good enough, whether the Lost Engine's good enough with it, and then people slating it. We've had people very badly slating it and then play at EUIC and do pretty well with it. And we've touched on that many a times already over that broadcast, so that was fun enough. And the Uncommon Energy would already have spoken about that at length, but obviously it came second at EUIC. It's continued to do generally quite well across the pond as well. I think it won Singapore regionals over that side. But it's always going to find a place in the format, whether it's that kind of build with a Burnett or whether it's a bit more straightforward. Yeah, this meta is really interesting right now because you don't know what you're going to be seeing across the table, especially at a large tournament. Even at smaller tournaments now, they're not really even that small. I say that in jest because in the UK we get 3-man cups, but you still don't know what's going to come because there's so many different decks there, and that's the exciting thing about Pokemon TCG right now.
Yeah, we were really treated in the UIC because when I was picking up all the matches, I had the chance to pick. You know, there were so many decks that were on offer that I was able to put up a deck that was doing well, and it was a different deck, a different archetype every time.
You even got a Spathra on.
I even got a Spathra on. I was watching those decks, so there was like a Spathra, Golden Go, and some other wacky builds. There was like a
there was a great Tusk in day 2. I'm pretty sure.
There was great Tusk. Yeah, they were all doing well. So I had them on Control F for a very long time. But
was it only you choosing games, Rab?
Yeah. So that was.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Instead of all of the casters coming together and saying, "Oh, quick rush to find a game."
Yeah.
And Ben had a bit more control.
Yeah.
That's good.
Made life a lot easier. And like I said, I think we showcased, I don't know, many different decks. I'm pretty sure almost every archetype that was possible.
Yeah.
That was actually a very good,
more niche ones.
A very good job then, because oftentimes it's who's around in the next 2 minutes.
I was really, I was really fortunate to have that position because, I mean, you mentioned putting Ancient Box on round 1 because Vinny was one of our kind of players to watch, and it was Ancient Box versus Lugia, which was kind of a new deck versus a deck that was evolving over time. But then round two was where my kind of little bit of regret was because it was Pham versus Schultz, and I was like, no, because Robin was playing Ancient Box, and I was like, I didn't want to put on Ancient Box
back to back, but, right? You can never. I mean, that's just something you can't ever predict, right? No, I think you take the round 1 matchup as a win and just
Yeah, we had the opportunity to show all kinds of decks, and that was the main thing. Hopefully, we can see that going forward as well, and let's just see how the meta kind of develops from here.
Yeah.
Anything else from these tournaments? I mean, any other interesting last points from what's happened in the last couple of weeks? Like I said, we're very early stages now. And we've got a lot of tournaments to come.
I guess I would just ask you guys if you guys are. I think you guys are both playing in like cups these next couple of weeks. What are you like gravitating towards and thinking about as your choices? I'm not playing basically anything else for the rest of the season, but I would just keep playing Arctina because I want to not really focus about Pokemon too much and know that I could come back to it. I say not focusing on Pokemon. I'll still be doing videos every day and playing loads of Pokemon, but not from like a big tournament. And this, obviously. But yeah, what are you guys like gravitating towards?
I went to a cup last week, and I played Ancient Box, and I went 3-0 and then ID'd twice, but I couldn't. I left and I thought, I think I'm high rolling. I don't think I'm actually.
This was Vinny's list, right?
Yeah. It felt great. It was a very good deck. It did what it did, but I kind of left like because I've been testing it before. And I knew, like you said, the inconsistencies of the deck. So I didn't know whether I was getting really fortunate or not. But I'd still continue playing it. I think it's a very, very fun deck to play.
Didn't you pick up some special little treats at EUIC, Ben? No, I thought you were going to play at some cups. or
Yeah.
maybe a challenge?
I picked up everything really. I said
Yeah, go on. What was the nice blue Pokemon that you picked up?
Which one was this?
Is that Chien-Pao? Oh wait,
Not
he didn't pick up
even.
Dialga, did he?
I didn't
Definitely a
pick up
stage 2 blue Pokemon.
Stage 2 and blue.
Did I?
And it's not POW.
I'm pretty sure
I
you.
picked up some Quacklevel. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I think for locals, I want to play Neo Energy. I think it's a cool card. I like it. Leave me alone.
Shout out to those 10 people that played Neo Upper Energy.
Yeah.
Neo Upper is going straight in the cube and nowhere near a standard deck.
Right, for another episode, Joe, we know we're going to have a cube discussion at some stage.
Yeah, don't worry. I had to get it in somewhere.
Very quickly on me, I would play whatever I have availability to play, I think, because I don't own a lot of cards right now.
I've got your Tinas.
Yeah, you've stolen my Tinas.
I don't know how that happened. You should have taken the cards off me.
Yeah, I think I still have a 2/2 line, so I could play Arctina, I could play H-Box. I would love to play Charizard at Cups, because I feel like it's just one of those where just play the best deck in the format. Yeah. And I probably need more practice with it anyway. I'm still playing Cups just because I still have a slight chance. I have an okay chance.
You've got a good chance. You've got a very good chance.
Yeah, but I downplay it because I'm awful at the game nowadays.
No. I'm
still going for it.
You're good.
I play at the level of the game.
I'm still going for it. We'll see what happens.
Me and Rab are wilting, but you've still got a chance.
I can't get any points unless I win them.
That is a problem.
You know what's really nice being in my position? I'm self-proclaimed not going for my invite this year. So.
Yeah.
By now,
I am as of a week ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
never was actually. So,
considering you cast a lot more or have casted a lot more, especially with ICs than us.
Yeah.
Well, so
this is my first time being in a similar boat to. Well, we've all been in the same boat this time, and I found it very tough this time. Like before, I would lose out on like an IC or two, and I might not necessarily have traveled to some of those anyway. But now losing like 3 or 4 regional attempts. I mean, sure, I've still played in 3 and done terribly, so I had the opportunity to still get the invite. But I need to really respect every event that I get to play in a lot more now if I want to try next season.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that's going to be about it for us here at the SpilltheTeaCG podcast. I mean, it's been great just finally getting this off the ground. I think we can say that on behalf of everyone here. We've got a lot of stories that we can tell. Like I said, we've been pretty much PG so far. And we could go pretty unhinged quite quickly, and we're trying not to. And we've already had an argument between these two, as with me in the middle a bit.
Constructive argument.
Constructive.
Yeah, relatively.
Constructive.
But I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to us ramble on for a little bit. And it honestly is just going to be a bit of a ramble. It's for us just to kind of bring us genuinely to you guys, so you guys get to know us a little bit more. Of course, we're going to be at pretty much every regionals in some way, shape or form, whether it's one of us, a couple of us, or maybe all 3, whether it's casting or even playing. So there's an opportunity to see us there. But stay tuned. We will be coming out with more podcasts and episodes, lots of different opportunities to showcase different topics as well. Just make sure you guys, I don't know how it is on podcast. Do you subscribe? Do you make sure you ring a bell? I haven't got a clue.
It's on YouTube. You subscribe. I know that much. You can follow on Spotify and Apple.
Yeah. We will have our individual Twitter or X handles below as well. We do and will be starting up our SpilltheTeaCG Twitter at the same time, just to make sure we can get it out there. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. Any last final words, you two clowns?
See you soon.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
See you soon.
Maybe.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.